All right, we're looking at Steve's 1972 Chevy Blazer. He's complaining that his ignition switch is getting a little bit weird and he's starting to see it smoke. Today here at Brothers Tech Center, we're going to find out what's going on and how to replace it if necessary. So you better stay tuned. All right, so apparently the switch has a mind of its own. It'll start, not start, this, that, and the other. So let's just see what it's doing. So first of all, it is not starting, and okay, so it's smoking pretty good there. So we've got definite problems underneath there. I'm going to climb up underneath here and take a look. Some of the things I'm going to be looking for is a really common thing is that people will hijack the power going in or out of the ignition switch, and it'll just be pulling too much power and melted. Sometimes the switch is just bad and it just has to be replaced, no big deal. So we're going to climb underneath, see what we got, and see what we got to do to fix it. All right, so the first obvious thing that we're seeing right here is this wire. It is completely melted out. That there apparently is our power wire, so that is our main supply coming into the switch. It's pulling a lot of power, that'll make a lot of heat, and it's melted. Now here you can see where somebody's hijacked into the wiring, but it's not a lot of power that's getting pulled out of there. Sometimes people will hook up fans and different things like that, and it's just too much to come through your ignition switch. So I'm going to go ahead and get this guy out. Let me show you how that happens. All right, so you really don't need any necessarily specialized tools. This is specifically for electrical, but as you can see, it's basically just a skinny little screwdriver. I'll show you how that works in a bit here. This guy right here, you'll notice that it's got these prongs out. They fit right into these notches, and this goes in here, and it'll turn the chrome bezel off. That's actually how it screws in the ignition switch. Before I do any of that though, I have to get myself a paper clip. And what we're going to be doing with this paper clip is we're going to be putting in our ignition key and we're going to turn it to the left. Now you can't see it, but in there's this little brass button, and you push in through this really small hole right here with a paper clip, and you can generally feel that little button push in, and then you should be able to take this tumbler, the key and everything, and pull it right on out. Okay, I should say disconnect your battery before you go any further. You don't want to do any more damage in there when you're moving all the wires around. Next, I'll take our tool here, I'll get it right in my slots, and then you just got to turn it counterclockwise. And that's how that comes out. So next I'll climb underneath here, we'll pull this out. Now you got to be really careful. A lot of times when you're working on this kind of a thing, you'll actually do more damage than you had before. So be careful. The wires are old and they're brittle. Don't get in there really haphazardly. This is another piece that goes on the back side of the ignition switch. And now let me show you what a new ignition switch looks like. And the reason I want to do that is because I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this little wire pigtail from the ignition switch. And how you do that is you'll notice that there's a tab here and there's a tab right here. And you'll need to get something like this and just make sure that those tabs are pushed down a little bit. And then you'll be able to pull this out. Now you got to be careful with these tabs because they are more than likely very old and very tired and very brittle too. It's probably a good chance you're going to break them, and you might want to just get one of these right off the bat if you think you're already going to need an ignition switch. So this is what a healthy pigtail looks like. Let's see what this one looks like. All right, so we'll get these tabs pushed in. Well, they just straight up broke off as predicted. So I'll pull that out. So here you can see this is just it's just been melting. So this is a problem that's been taken care of for a while. Now again, I don't see any improper wiring that's up in here. So even after I replace this, I'm going to keep a close eye on this. There might be an electrical problem somewhere else in the system that's given this. More than likely it's just our ignition switch, but we don't want to assume that. Now what I'm going to do is take this old pigtail off. Now how we do that is I'll show you on this new pigtail. me get up close here. So on your pigtail here, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a slot that's just the right size for this screwdriver. And you'll push the screwdriver in there, and then what'll happen is you're going to bend this little tab down right here when that happens. And when you bend that tab down enough, you'll be able to slide this out of the pigtail. So what I'll be able to do on something like this is, if I have a good wire, then I'll just be able to disconnect the good wire that's still in the truck, and I'll be able to plug that old wire into here. If I've got a fried wire, then I can go ahead and tap into that, and I'll show you how to do that too. Okay, now before I start pulling these wires out, you're going to forget where they go. You're going to want to take a picture of it. You're going to want to get the wiring diagram, and also, in case, worst case scenario, on the back of the ignition switch, you'll see solenoid, battery, accessory, etc., and you'll be able to know where those go. Each of these is color-coded, original GM. If you look on your wiring diagram, you'll see exactly where they go. So we'll make sure that we don't lose track of these. I'm going to go ahead and pull them out, and then I'll use the wires that I can use. I'll take the red out, put the red back in, the brown, etc., piece by piece, so I don't get anything mixed up. If I do get mixed up, I'll refer to my ignition switch. So let's see how many good wires we've got or not. Now, it'd be nice if I could pull these wires down more, but there's wires connected to them, there's air lines up here and things, so it's just not that practical. I'd give you a better view if I could. And some of these are going to be melted in maybe. You might not be able to get these out, you might have to replace them. This is a pretty bad pigtail here. Okay, all right, so one wire is just straight up melted in, so we're going to put another connection on that, so you get to see how to do that too. We had to cut our pink wire off. That means that we're going to need to put a connector on there. I'm going to show you how to do that on these wires so you can see really well. I'm going to start from scratch. I'm actually going to cut this off. And what you're going to want to do on these is you just need to strip a little bit of wire off, not too much. And you're going to want to get a tool like this. Now, these used to be really expensive, but the price on these has really come down, and you are not going to get a proper connection using something like this. You definitely want to get one of these. Now, what happens on this is we're going to lay the wire in like this, and you'll notice there's two clamping areas, if you will. This area right here is for the wire, and this is for the wire's insulation. So you'll lay this in like this. We make sure that we've got enough of the contact with the insulation, and that we've got wire good contact here, but it's not so long that it's going up into the prong and not letting it collapse down when it needs to. So usually what you're going to want to do is go ahead and put it in your clamp here, then get the wire in. All right, clamp down, and you'll see that's what a proper connection looks like. Okay. Give it a tug, make sure you're good to go, and then you're all set. So all you'll need to do when you install it, you'll pull the old one out. You'll make sure that this tab is sticking down far enough or up far enough. And then when you install it, you'll notice on the back of these that there's a little slot down here on the bottom. This top piece, it's just nice and flat. But there you've got that little step in there. And that step is going to go where the prong is going to go. And you'll normally hear it click, and then you're going to want to pull on it, make sure it's solid. So I'll go ahead and I'll fix that wire there, and then I will do something else for you. Okay, see this black wire right here? This is actually the red wire, the power wire. So that's pretty melted up, and my prong down here, my connector is really melted and messed up. I'm going to need to cut off a bit of this wire and then splice some in. So let me show you how we do that. So I'm going to cut off to where I can get a little bit of healthy wire. And I want about 1 inch of wire left over. Now, a lot of people, they'll use a butt connector on something like this, but I do not recommend that you use a butt connector. In all of my electric repairs, most of the time, I'm fixing butt connectors. So when you do something like this, we're going to solder this wire, shrink wrap it the whole 9 yards so it is solid and I don't have to fix it in the future. I'm just going to simply use the wire that came on my pigtail here, and I'll take this out. I'm going to shorten my wire down a little bit. I don't need all that length. I'm going to strip off about 1 inch of the insulation. When we join these, what we're going to do is we're going to take these and we're going to put them like a cross, just like this. Then I'm going to take the top one here and I'm going to bend it over like that. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to wrap it around the wire like that. So we'll get it like this. We'll go ahead and get a solder gun on there, solder that up. And then we'll get shrink wrap and put it over the top and have that set on. And this way we've got a good connection. So I'll just simply repeat this underneath the dash there and we'll be all set. Now I'll go ahead and switch over my wires from my pigtail and do them one at a time. Just the brown wire, just the purple wire, etc. If I get lost, which is common, I'll just refer to the back of the ignition switch. So give me a few minutes to swap this over and we'll see if she starts. Now after I make sure that all my wires are in the right spot, I like to tape this up because a loose wire that's jiggling around sooner or later is going to make a poor connection. So even though they didn't do this at the factory, I like to wrap this up. Now before I put everything back together, I just want to test it. I'm going to get a screwdriver. It's got a tip about the size of this. I'm going to carefully put it in the ignition switch. There's a slot back in there and I'll be able to turn this over. First I'm just going to turn on the electrical to see if anything starts smoking. We're good there. So then I'll go ahead and start it. So everything's looking good. I got my hands on the ignition switch. I want to see if it's building up any heat. I'm feeling any of the electrical wires, see if they're building up any heat. Everything seems to be good. I'll keep another eye on it, but we're looking like we're all good. Now I'll go ahead and put this all back together. It's basically just how it came apart. We'll get this guy here. Now you'll notice this has slots in it, and those slots are going to line up here. Now, it's only going to line up one way. So you just keep turning it until it fits correctly. Now we'll carefully slide this up underneath. You'll notice that there's some notches right here, 3 of them, and there's also notches in this little bezel brace. So that you'll line up all your notches. You'll take your bezel here and you'll screw this on. Now these are fine threads. Sometimes it takes a while to get started. You definitely want to make sure you don't get cross-threaded or you'll make a mess of stuff. All right, we are all done. I'm just going to take a little grease, put it on here, and then install it. Let's see what we got. All right, good deal. All right, my name is David Welch. I'm here at Brothers Tech Center every single week so we can get your truck back on the road. You check us out on Facebook and Instagram, and when you're on YouTube, you subscribe, because next week we're going to have another video, and if you miss it, I'm going to be really mad at you.